the show that brings you the top news stories and interviews featured here on ENCA over the past 7 days. Thank you for joining us. I am Aviwe Mtila, and this is your Week in One. Now let's get straight into a few of this week's top stories. DNA tests confirm the identity of the body that was burnt in Thabo Bester's prison cell. Police make a major breakthrough in the gruesome murder of the two Soweto boys. And Ruyter appears virtually before Parliament. Now let's start here. The aftermath of the Thabo Bester saga continues to shock South Africans. Our news broke over the weekend after the identity of the bodies that was burnt in Bester's cell to aid his escape was confirmed. Now that the DNA results have helped confirm the identity of the man, the family of Katlego Mpolo has had the painful ordeal of viewing his remains. He'd been missing for over a year, last seen by his family in March 2022. Now, I have been covering this heart-wrenching story this week. Let's take a look. Katlego Bereng's family is broken. It's the first time they're seeing him since it came out that his charred remains were the ones used to declare rapist and murderer Thabo Bester dead. Bereng's mother had to be taken away to hospital by ambulance.
Her mother cried as soon as she stepped into the place saying, "I was here looking for my son. You said he was not here. Today you're calling me at the very same place to say I must come identify." It was very sad, very, very sad. Emotions were high because we believe we've been failed, but we don't have proof, but we believe that we've been failed.
And still, the family says they have no closure.
We don't know what happened to him. We don't know how he disappeared. We don't know how he got to the hospital. Why couldn't they identify him at the hospital? How he ended up at the mortuary? What happened to him? So there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Action SA's Free State leader was also at the mortuary.
Finally, they've managed to see the remains of Katlego, and they will be able to have a proper, funeral that will be done in dignity and with respect.
The family says they will now start making preparations to lay Katlego Bereng to rest. Aviwe Mtila, Bloemfontein. The plot thickened when a Free State family contacted police this week, believing that one of the bodies claimed by Dr. Nandi Pamakudumana days before Thabo Bester's escape was their relative. But what about the remaining bodies and what could have led to their deaths? I spoke to the family and experts on the matter.
One of the bodies can belong to our relative, my brother-in-law, because we've been looking for him since 2021 September.
66-year-old Godfrey Letsotso was last seen by family in Kimberley when his sister dropped him off at a taxi headed to Bloemfontein. The taxi driver told the family he dropped Letsotso off at the Majagatata taxi rank, and that was the last time he was seen alive. Since allegations that Dr. Nandi Pamakudumana claimed multiple bodies from the Bloemfontein State Mortuary surfaced, the family contacted the police, who then did DNA tests and took the family to view the bodies on the 19th of April.
Unfortunately, when we later went to the government mortuary, we were not allowed to go see those two bodies because the gentleman, the detective assigned to us, told us that they are in a bad decomposed state, and the only thing that we can do, he suggested another set of DNA tests, of which it was taken from my wife and her sister, to which against those two bodies, it will be determined whether it is our relative or not.
The DNA results are yet to come back. One crime expert believes the victims could have been killed by the accused.
We see a possibility where people were profiled whilst they were still alive, so that they can fit a particular purpose, like in the case of, Katlego now being killed and then, been smuggled into a cell.
It is unclear at this stage whether Magudumana claimed 2 or more bodies at the mortuary. Professor Mofokeng believes more people will be charged with murder. Aviwe Mtila, Johannesburg. Now, in all of this, one of the unanswered questions is exactly how Thabo Bester and Nandipha Magudumana fled the country. Now, Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi announced that the couple didn't flee the country using fraudulent South African passports issued by Home Affairs. He believes the couple were assisted by officials at the border. Now, the police, meanwhile, remain tight-lipped about the investigations, and ENCA senior journalist Aisha Ismail reports.
It's possible that they must have jumped the fence. If they went through a normal port of entry, they could not have done that without the help of either an immigration officer in Home Affairs or a police officer in SAPS. There's no other way.
The passports Thabo Bester and Nandipha Magudumana were carrying were not stamped. The minister went further to say that the immigration officials who helped them must have been high-ranking, and concedes that some South African immigration officers are involved in criminal activities along with the police.
3 weeks ago, we caught a police officer, an immigration officer, at OR Tambo Airport. People who stay in South Africa has come to an end. Their passports, the days which they were given to stay in South Africa has come to an end. They bring the passports together, give them this police officer in uniform, who marches through all the airport structures, go into the bag, call an immigration officer and start stamping the passports as if the person has left the country. Now that police officer is using his uniform and rank to go through there because nobody suspects him.
Motsoaledi says in this case, officials were watched and then arrested. The minister is adamant, though, that Home Affairs did not issue any fraudulent passports to Bester or Magudumana.
That man, Thabo Bester, was carrying an American passport. If he defrauded Americans, not us. But I understand the Americans have also disowned it. That thing is not theirs. The one he was caught with in Tanzania. And Dr. Nandipha Magudumana was not carrying any defrauded passport whatsoever. She was just carrying a friend's expired passport and a friend's functioning passport, and between them they'll have to tell the police what was going on.
Motsoaledi says Thabo Bester has still not applied for a South African ID in any way, shape or form. Aisha Ismail, Cape Town.
You'll want to stay tuned to Week in One because after the break, we feature some of the exclusive interviews and major talking points raised this week by our anchors. Glad to have you back on Week in One. I am Aviwe Mtila. Our AKA's mother, Lynn Forbes, spoke to my colleague Abigail Fisachi in an exclusive interview this past weekend. For now, she's patient with the police investigations into her son's murder. No arrests have yet been made, but police say that they have made progress on the case. Rapper and music producer Keenan Forbes was shot and killed outside a Durban restaurant in February this year.
What's happening with the investigation? We see justice for AKA trending every other day. The legacy is amazing at keeping his legacy alive and making sure that he stays trending. Yeah. But has there been any progress? I know that there was, I think it's a false report that people were arrested, 5 men were arrested. Have you heard anything as the family with regards to the investigation, and if we are any closer to finding out who did this?
I think all of this is bigger than Kenan and bigger than the Forbes family. And so when the legacy asks for justice for AK, I know what they're asking is that we actually need justice as a country. And I support them on that, okay, wholeheartedly. And then on the investigation, there is obviously an investigation ongoing, and obviously because it's an ongoing investigation, you know, we can't, even if they have information, that they can't share information with us that will jeopardize the investigation. Okay. So, but we are updated. We are told on a regular basis what's happening. You know, the false report. I never took notice of that because unless it came from the police to us, then I'm not going to believe it. So It's the same. They definitely tell us that they're making progress, and that's public information. So there's nothing that I can say differently that that they will tell us that we would now have access to. And what if I then sit around the corner and have coffee with you and tell you what we know is what we need to know, and I don't want to rush them. Because I want, you know, Kenan is gone for me. For me, he's gone, and nothing that's going to be rushed is going to bring him back. I'm still going to go to bed without my son, and I'm going to wake up without my son. And it doesn't matter who gets arrested, that's never going to change. So I'm allowing, and I'm just speaking on behalf of myself right now because I'm here, I'm allowing the investigation to run its course because nothing is going to be different in terms of this. But as far as a country, I think we have some real issues to address.
On to politics, where parties formerly in partnership with the DA in the city of Johannesburg have urged the party to review its position on coalitions. Now, this is after leader John Steenhuisen said they would not form part of a coalition that involves the Patriotic Alliance in the city of Johannesburg. Now, ENCA anchor Gareth Edwards spoke to Action SA's national chairperson Michael Beaumont about this.
Big names, of course, Action SA, IFP and ACDP, wanted to put a motion of no confidence against the City of Johannesburg Mayor Thabo Bester, but he's since resigned. We'll talk about that timing in a moment. Today's council meeting was due to vote on two things, really the motion of no confidence against the Mayor and, of course, Speaker Colleen Makobela. We'll unpack all those issues with Action SA's national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, making time for me this morning. Michael, morning. Thank you for coming in. Let's just first of all start, I want to get your thoughts on the timing of this. We're being told that Thabo Bester resigned. Nothing to do, according to radio reports, nothing to do with the timing, that today was a motion of no confidence. Do you buy that?
Yeah, it was a spectacular coincidence, I suppose. No, we don't buy that at all, Gareth. I think we must be clear. When Action SA brought this motion of no confidence into Thabo Bester, there's been an outpouring from Joburg residents who are often, deeply confused by his public appearances and lack of a coherent vision for, let's be honest, a city that has huge challenges and needs very clear and strong leadership to address them. Was he ever qualified to do this job? I think it's like if the wrong player gets put into a team, it's not the player's fault, it's the selector. And I think in many ways that's what the ANC and EFF have done. They had a compromise deal. They can't agree between them who leads, and they're putting in parties that have 1 or 2 seats. There's no real constituency, there's no real vision, and this is the consequence of that decision. Part of the strategy for elections next year is to put people into positions knowing they're going to fail and then come back to the electorate and say, see, coalitions don't work. This is why you must only vote ANC. Does it hold water for you? Well, ironically, it seems to be the strategy of both the ANC and the DA. They involve themselves in coalition. They are destructive in those forms of coalition and how they lead or participate within them. And then they go out to the electorate, and there's many examples that can be proven to show this, to say that, look, coalitions don't work, you've got to give us a majority in the future.
Still in politics, but to the Eastern Cape now, where the DA has submitted a Promotion of Access to Information Act to Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane. The party wants him to give a record of the decision that allowed provincial authorities to lease a portion of government-owned Bulembu Airport in Bishu to the president of the UAE. Now, ENCA anchor Dan Moyane spoke to the DA's Angel Kanyile.
What are you asking for under the PAIA, under this act of the Promotion of Access to Information? What do you want Mr. Mabuyane to provide you?
When we get this plan, we are going to scrutinize it and get to the bottom of it so that we can be able to ascertain if they're actually in compliance with the South African laws.
They are saying, the authorities in the Eastern Cape, that this was a perfectly legal event, that everything was done legally. You don't trust them?
There's a very much insufficient information, Mr. Moyane, because according to this landing, we have seen reports that the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, has given them permission, I think in terms of Section 30, because those rights, they fall within him. He has that prerogative to give them those rights. However, the minister was supposed to open this up for public to be able to comment for 30 days. And to also advertise this on the Department of Home Affairs website and on the government gazette as well. So we have searched on the Department of Home Affairs website. We did not find this notice. And we also went to the government gazette. We did not find this notice. At the moment, it is our view that this was not done procedurally, and it is up to the minister to prove that what he has done was done legally and that the landing of the flight was also done legally.
This might just be reminiscent of what happened with the Gupta family when they landed for a private wedding at Waterkloof Air Force Base.
Mr. Moyane, we don't want to see the same situation happening again. And over and above that, some of the questions that we have in our minds is whether there were immigration officials to actually ascertain that the people that have entered the country, they are having valid visas and they are also legally in the country.
I'll stay tuned to Week in One, because coming up, police make a breakthrough in the heartbreaking story of the 2 children that were murdered in Soweto. That's after the break. Welcome back to Week in One. I am Aviwe Mtila. Now to this heartbreaking story, where police have made a breakthrough in the murder investigations of the 2 Soweto boys whose mutilated bodies were found last week. What has shocked the grieving families even more is the fact that one of the suspects is a relative. She was taken into custody with her partner on the same day a memorial service was held for the boys. Now ENCA's Manqoba Mchunu reports.
Almost a week after the gruesome discovery, a breakthrough by police.
We have arrested 2 suspects after the mutilated bodies of 2 young boys were discovered in Soweto on the 20th of April. The suspects, a 50-year-old woman and her 39-year-old partner.
The 50-year-old woman, a close relative, now charged with murder.
Sithuke kakhulu because into vele besingayilindelanga leyo ukuthi ingayenzeka yabona. So sithuke kakhulu abaphoyisa mebengena lapha sebezothola sesithola ukuthi hawu umuntu oladuzane uyo umuntu thina siloko sifuna nje sithi hawu umuntu asekudenile kanti umuntu oladuzane kodwa sibe shocked kakhulu.
This as more details are starting to emerge on how the 2 cousins met their fate.
Ngifuna ukumbuza ukuthi ufile kanjani umzali awuzwa isikhalo somntwana, understand, and owakhe naye self lo mntana lona labantwana laba bakhe. So then ngathi ngiyamthola nje ngimtsipha kancane nje nginikhatha ngizizwa ngiright ngingakambuzi nje le mubuza ukuthi ufila kanjani man.
There was a plastic that was found with clothes stained with blood. This is what led to suspicions that no, something's not right. The female suspect was actually strolling around the yards, looking for that plastic bag that was thrown from the back of her house, throwing it to the neighbor's house, just to get rid of the evidence or something like that. So now that plastic bag that was thrown on that yard there, the way people were suspicious, they actually opened that plastic bag and they could find clothes inside that plastic bag there. The clothes were stained with blood.
You were brutally butchered by evil, senseless and cruel animals. You were young and innocent. You did not deserve to die like that.
A memorial service was held for the 2 cousins with more calls for justice. The 2 boys will be laid to rest on Friday, the same day the alleged killers are also expected to appear in court. Manqoba Mchunu, Soweto.
Let's move on to Parliament, where Ruyter would not reveal the name of the minister he alleges is involved in corruption at the power utility. The former Eskom CEO was expected to spill the beans at his virtual appearance before Scopa, but he remained tight-lipped, citing security concerns. ENCA's Heidi Giokos has more.
South Africans are none the wiser as to who former Eskom CEO Ruyter was referring to when he claimed a high-ranking politician is involved in corruption at the power utility.
I shared the information with a minister. I think I shouldn't mention names, but I did share it, and as well as with senior advisors to the president himself.
Ruyter's virtual appearance before Scopa from an undisclosed location was much anticipated, but in the end, nothing new was revealed.
At this point in time, Honourable Hadebe, I don't think that it is in the interests of the oversight role of Scopa and the nature of the engagement that I disclose this today. I don't think it is a critical element that is important, and I therefore propose that we move on, and that I do not disclose the identity of this minister, because I don't think that it is required for us to enhance, as the Honourable Chairman said, the sole purpose is to look at the potential misuse of public funds, and therefore I would not want to elaborate on that at this point in time.
De Ruyter defended his decision throughout the 3 hours he spent before the committee, insisting that he did what was required of him by reporting the matter to relevant authorities.
I did engage with the South African police at the highest level, with the National Commissioner of Police and a number of other senior officials, generals, brigadiers, as well as senior representatives of the SSA. I also shared information about corruption and theft with the adjoints at the South African Police Services College in Pretoria.
You are saying to us, you're not going to disclose the name of the minister.
Scopa members got increasingly frustrated with De Ruyter for his inability to provide further clarity or tangible evidence on his corruption claims. Now, the Eskom board, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan and law enforcement agencies like the Hawks will be summoned to appear before the committee in the coming weeks. Heidi Jakos in Johannesburg.
The long-awaited trial into the Enyobeni Tavern has been postponed. Tavern owners and couple, Siakangela and Vuyokazi Ndevu, face charges that include the sale of alcohol to persons under the age of 18. The first state witness described how residents had, for months leading up to the tragic event, called for police and liquor authorities to intervene, but with no luck. ENCA's Ronald Masinda reports.
The first witness was Mncedisi George Wenana. The 67-year-old says he lives a stone's throw away from Enyobeni Tavern. He says he used to drink at the tavern before noticing that young patrons used to frequently go there. He says he stopped drinking after teenage girls called him baby. Wenana says they used to complain to the police and the Eastern Cape Liquor Board about the noise levels at Enyobeni Tavern and young patrons usually going into their yards. But the defense representing the Ndevus says she is not convinced about some of the allegations made by the witness.
The witness seemed to be evasive in a few questions that I asked him with regards to the load shedding. For one, he cannot recall. It has been 10 months since the incident, and load shedding has been rolling since then. So I do have evidence that load shedding did hit the day, and also on that part that his daughter was also running a business right on his pavement is another shocker to us.
The NPA in the province says it is convinced that they had a credible state witness in Wenana.
We must commend our first witness. I think he was able to give the court what we wanted the court to get from the state's case.
Today's proceedings were interrupted due to load shedding, but the family of the deceased say they are not too worried about any future delays.
When you look at anything that with regards to the courts, there will always be some delays. It's worse now that due to the load shedding, because now even today is the reason why we couldn't proceed any further. is due to the fact that there is load shedding.
The trial has been postponed to the 23rd and 24th of May, with 2 more state witnesses expected in court. Ronald Masinda, East London.
And with that, we wrap this week's edition of Week in One. From myself and the superb Week in One team, have a great long weekend.